In May of 1935, the editor of the Forensic, national organ of the Pi Kappa Delta debate fraternity, which has a discriminatory law against Negroes, honored the Wiley coach, Professor Melvin B. Tolson, by asking him to write an article on interracial debates.
I have made the following observations concerning interracial debates. First, interracial debates give both the debaters and their mixed audiences an ethnic arena that is in harmony with the noblest principles of American education and democracy.
It is clear that the Pi Kappa Delta Forensic Society has a long, rich history of making a change through forensics competition. The Wiley College Great Debaters of Marshall, Texas find it an honor and privilege to highlight 77-year-old Miss Gail Beil, a Pi Kappa Delta national champion in 1959, as proof of preservation of the Pi Kappa Delta history.
In 70, well, I mean, you have to realize that I started debating at 14, I'm 77. So all of my life, from the first time that I can remember, the very first debate that I was involved in, I was in the 8th grade, in the affirmative. And my debate coach reached over and wrote on my paper, negative. So I guess all of my life, from that day forward, I read constantly. Because you didn't, as you well know, you didn't just debate. I read cover to cover every issue of Time magazine, every issue of U.S. News and World Report, every issue of Newsweek, and any other news-related publication, because one of the contests that I always entered, in addition to debate, was what they called extemporaneous speaking. I'm sure you all have the same thing, but what it amounts to is you draw a current event out of a hat and you're given 30 minutes to write generally a 12 to 14 minute speech, and you have 30 minutes to do it. So the only way you can do that is to read constantly, which I still do, to stay involved in public affairs. Radio at that time, television was just starting, and news, national news really only began to exist when I was in high school. So I became in that way a political animal. I learned something that I'm going to try to teach Marshall from now until the 9th of May, the incredible importance of voting. Because when you look at the travesty committed on this country by elected officials, there because voters either didn't care, didn't know what they were doing, didn't read. How else could you send every Japanese person who was born in this country into a concentration camp? How else could you consign a whole race of people in the South to A, not being able to vote, and in the North to allowing that? How could you justify not letting women vote? How could you justify that? At that time, the Midwestern schools, for the most part, dominated the tournament. So OU, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, UT, TCU, the only difference that I felt, because we all debated the same subject. See, that was when Farmer was debating, there was a choice of 3 subjects, but the structure of the debate was the same as it was when I was debating in 58, 59, and that was 2 teams, 2 members each. Each team had a 10-minute opening speech, affirmative, negative, and then a 5-minute rebuttal, negative, affirmative, negative, affirmative. So when Farmer was debating, the best I can tell from reading the Pi Kappa Delta forensics of that time and finding, of course, Tolson's article, is that they were debating the proliferation of munitions, trying to control arms control, worldwide arms control. I think we were debating federal aid to education. Whatever it was, all of us were debating the same subject.
Did competition at that time like actually help create change? Like,
well, I think it made a change to us as individuals because a number of my team members got involved in politics. I waited till I was 77, but a number of them got involved in local politics.
oh, so they like used the skills?
Of course. A number of them became lawyers. A lot of them were teachers because that was the direction we were going in, or college professors. Chris Delaporte, with whom I've been corresponding lately, very early got involved in Oklahoma politics. He was on the team.
Did the structures like transfer over, like the stuff that you learned from?
What happened, debate, at least as I watch you all now, debate has reverted back to what it was when Farmer was there, when Tolson was teaching, when I was debating. And this is the way debate worked. You have this broad subject, resolved that the federal government should subsidize aid to public schools. That's not quite good wording, but we'll call it that. And so you looked at the pros and cons. You looked for resources that would substantiate your own opinion, and you logic to say why the federal government ought to be funding public school education or ought not. But it was a matter of developing a good argument on both sides with supporting evidence. By the time my children were debating, which would have been in the very late 70s, early 80s, debate was haul in a file cabinet on, and I do not exaggerate, haul in a file cabinet on a dolly and get a huge
at the
sketch
tournaments?
pad. Yes, no, yeah, at a tournament. You'd have a huge sketch pad, which is called a flow chart, and you would talk as fast as you possibly could, which is how I know that these people that are doing advertising commercials and they tell you all of the bad things, but they do it in a way that you can't understand it, were probably all high school debaters in the 80s. And that's all it was. It was one quote after the other. There was no sense of logic. I quit judging Sam Baxter, who's a very prominent lawyer and a perfect example of high school and college debate, by the way. He's with McCool Smith now. We both quit because this was not what we learned ourselves and what we wanted to see taught. So we both quit judging debate, and I have not been back until you all came along to look at what debate has become. My understanding now with the various kinds of debate is that for the most part debate has reverted back to what it ought to be. Now, what difference did it make? Well, the first thing it taught us was the art of public speaking. My own mother died in childbirth, but my father tells me that she would argue with a tree, and I think it was genetic. But I know that I've never been ever uncomfortable speaking before a crowd. So as a result, then that hopefully the leadership skills have led to my being the chairman of every organization I ever joined, but to being able to guide, whether it was the League of Women Voters or the Harrison County Historical Commission or the East Texas Historical Association or whatever, to guide us as a chairman into being able to take action without endless debate. If city commission meeting, and I've had the unfortunate experience in the last year of watching an absolute travesty on the whole idea of discussion leading to a decision. So I learned that. I learned never to open your mouth and make a dogmatic statement that you can't back up. I learned the hard way that there are two sides of every argument. My debate partner in high school and I, in the UIL tournament, we go through, we win, we get to the regionals, we win, we get to the state, we go through the quarterfinals, we win, we get to the semifinals, we win, we get to the finals with an affirmative case that cannot be beaten. And we were right, but we met it on the negative. And neither Evelyn nor I could fill out a full 10-minute speech because we had not, and our coach had warned us, don't think your affirmative case is unbeatable because it's not. And we knew more than she did. And she was right. And so we lost.
We thank you, Miss Gail Beil, for sharing your wisdom and thirst for change that Pi Kappa Delta truly embodies through public speaking, questioning, and competing in forensics from the past and many years to come.